Okay, there's this rumor, right? It's been going around online for ages, and honestly, it's one of the ugliest ones. You've probably seen it splashed across social media somewhere. Elvis married a 14-year-old. Or worse, sometimes it gets twisted into Elvis was a pedophile. It's
Oh
the
boy.
kind of headline people grab onto because it's shocking, right? It's dramatic. So easy to just hit share without even, checking anything. But that's the mission for this deep dive today, that claim. It's just not true. Not even close. So we're going to break this whole thing down piece by piece. We've got the timelines, direct quotes, reliable sources. We're laying out the real story. Because just shouting a lie online, even really loudly, well, it doesn't make it true.
It really is fascinating, isn't it, how these viral claims just take hold,
Hmm.
especially when they hit that emotional nerve. And this deep dive, it isn't just about Elvis, really. It's kind of about understanding how misinformation works, how context just gets stripped away, leaving you with this like tiny distorted piece that just sticks in your mind.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this. Let's get into the actual facts. The core of it, the thing people always point to, it starts with a truth. Elvis did meet Priscilla Booley in 1959 in Germany. He was 24, yeah, doing his army service. And she was 14. That part. Accurate. But it's the context around that meeting and everything that happened next that always seems to get, well, conveniently left out. They met at a party, on the base. And it started as a friendship. And this wasn't some secret thing either. Priscilla's parents, they knew all about it. They were involved right from the start. Then Elvis went back to the States. They kept in touch, letters, phone calls.
Right. And what's often just completely skipped over is how carefully this whole thing progressed, how monitored it was. Priscilla didn't actually move to Memphis until 1963. She was 17 by then. 17. And even that move only happened with her parents giving explicit, like written permission. And here's another crucial point. She didn't just move straight in with Elvis. Absolutely not. Her first place, she lived with Elvis's dad, Vernon, and his wife, Dee Presley. She was still in high school, had a strict curfew, was, supervised. Which brings us right to the hard fact, the actual historical record. Elvis and Priscilla got married in 1967, and by 1967, Priscilla was 21 years old.
21?
Yeah, 21. That's the key number here. And look, a really vital piece of this comes straight from Priscilla herself, her own words. In her book from 1985, Elvis and Me, she talked about this exact time she wrote. And let me quote this directly. Even though I was only 14, I was older than my years. Elvis never pressured me for sex. He said he respected that I was young and didn't want to ruin anything between us. And what really stands out there is how clear she is about the nature of that early relationship. It was explicitly not sexual when she was that age. And that distinction is just, it's vital. Look, you might feel uncomfortable about the age gap itself. That's fair enough, a personal reaction. But that's a totally different thing from twisting the facts to claim something much, much darker happened. And, this isn't just Priscilla's version either. Peter Gronick, he's widely seen as the definitive Elvis biographer. In his book, Careless Love, incredibly detailed book, he backs this up. He states their relationship was emotional, that Elvis was drawn to her, her innocence. But it wasn't physical in those early years.
Okay. So, with those facts laid out, the timeline, her own words, it's really important we tackle that word people throw around. Pedophilia. What does that actually mean clinically? Pedophilia is about sexual attraction to prepubescent children. Usually we're talking under 11 or 12 years old. Priscilla was a teenager. And like we just heard, straight from her, their relationship wasn't physical when they first met. So calling Elvis a pedophile based on this, it's not just wrong on the facts, it's seriously defamatory.
And if you look even wider, think about that book, Elvis. What happened? The really controversial one written by his angry former bodyguards after they were fired. These guys had every reason, every motivation to spill the darkest secrets, right?
Yeah.
To make money off scandal. But even in that book, which really went for the jugular on other things, there is no claim of sexual misconduct with Priscilla back then. The fact that even his most hostile critics, people looking for dirt, didn't make that accusation, well, that speaks volumes. It's pretty powerful evidence that the facts just don't support it, because if they did, it would have been in that book.
Right.
Now, we do need to talk about the elephant in the room here.
Sure.
Priscilla Presley herself. She's definitely, let's say, known for shaping her own story over the years.
Yeah.
Sometimes she's the loyal widow, sometimes the sharp businesswoman, the victim, and maybe even the mastermind. It depends on what suits the moment, or maybe the financial interest.
That's a very fair point, and it actually highlights why we shouldn't just rely only on her version for this specific part of the story.
Yeah.
Well, yes, Priscilla has certainly crafted different public images. The actual facts around her marriage to Elvis, the dates, Her age, that's one area she really can't twist. The marriage license, it's real, it's a public document. The timeline,
Yeah.
it's documented everywhere. Independent biographies, historical records, even her own book, Elvis and Me, despite whatever personal spin is in there, confirms those basic dates. So yeah, we can look at her broader narrative critically, absolutely. But these core facts, they're solid, they're grounded in stuff we can actually check.
So, okay, if the facts are so clear, the dates are there, why does this ugly accusation just keep coming back? Year after year, it pops up again. Well, what's really insightful, I think, is understanding how these platforms work.
Mm.
You know, TikTok, Reddit, Twitter, they basically run on quick hits, content that's emotionally charged. So an edgy, scandalous claim, something you can absorb in like 10 seconds, that's going to get way, way more traction than, say, a 300-page biography or some carefully sourced academic timeline. Context just, it dies. It dies so fast. When the goal is just to go viral, it becomes less about, is this true? And more about, wow, look at this, share. That's
Yeah.
why these lies stick around. Not because they're valid, but because they're built to spread fast.
Look, nobody's saying it wasn't complicated. The whole relationship, it absolutely was, especially if you look at it through today's lens. But we also kind of have to remember the time period, right? This was the 1950s, the 60s.
Yeah, exactly. If we connect it to the, let's say, the broader cultural context back then, it helps put it in perspective. Doesn't excuse it, but helps perspective. It really wasn't that uncommon for older men, especially famous ones, celebrities, to date much younger women in that era. I mean, think about Jerry Lee Lewis, married his 13-year-old cousin. That actually happened. Or you had other rock stars back then openly dating underage groupies, often without much public backlash at the time. Now, let me be absolutely clear here. None of that makes it okay by today's standards, or frankly, even by some standards back then. But when we look back at history, we have to try and judge it honestly, understand the context, without letting our modern morals completely distort the actual facts of what occurred. It's about historical accuracy, even if that history makes us uncomfortable.
Right. So here's the bottom line. You are absolutely entitled to dislike the age gap. Totally. You can think the relationship was weird, maybe inappropriate. That's your call, your personal judgment. But what you don't get to do is rewrite history. Twist it into something much darker just because it fits a certain narrative or gets more clicks online. And yeah, while Priscilla Presley, as we said, has definitely spun her own stories over the years, maybe for money, maybe for control, this specific timeline, her age, at marriage, those facts are solid. She can't distort those. They're public record, documented. It's there in black and white. Elvis did not marry 14-year-olds. He did not groom a child. And people who keep repeating that, well, they either haven't bothered to look at the actual evidence, or maybe they just don't care about the truth. So, look, if this deep dive maybe made you a bit uncomfortable, good. Sometimes the truth does that. But at least now, you've got the real story, not just that recycled TikTok version that keeps bouncing around. And hey, if this helped clear things up for you, share it. Seriously, post it somewhere. Send it to someone you know who's maybe heard the myth and believed it. And definitely stick around because next time we're diving straight into part 2 of this series, the lawsuit that changed everything. We're going to uncover how Colonel Tom Parker's really shady business deals in this huge multi-million-dollar lawsuit basically changed the entire future of Elvis's legacy. Forever.
Yeah, definitely tune in for that. And until then, just remember, history isn't only what happened, it's also about what we choose to remember, and maybe more importantly, how we choose to understand it. It's probably time we started remembering it right.